911 operators of Reddit, what is the pettiest reason someone has called 911?
I'm not a 911 operator, but here we go. When I was in college, 90% of my professors were retired or still serving police officers. I was studying police foundations. One of the instructors was telling us about an older lady whose husband had recently passed away. She was dialing 911 every day because she was lonely and wanted a police officer to come and keep her company. They had tried explaining to her that 911 was for emergencies only, but she couldn't help it. To her, she was alone and wanted to have someone with her, so it seemed like an emergency. Eventually, my professor was the one to respond to the call. So he went to her house and sat with her. She made tea and put out some cookies, and they sat and talked until he had a call. In his eyes, it was public service, so he made a deal with her. If she agreed to stop calling for this reason, once every rotation of shifts, approximately once a week, he would go to her house and have tea and cookies. She never called 911 again for that reason, and every week he'd stop by and have tea and cookies until she passed away a few years later. He finished the story saying something like this: "We should never forget that although law enforcement is a big part of our job, public service comes in many forms."
Woman called because her pregnant 14 or 15-year-old granddaughter who lived with her and whose bed was the couch, wouldn't get off the couch so she could use it to watch TV. The woman felt very indignant when I asked, "What exactly do you want the police to do?" Officer cleared the call with, "She's got nowhere else to go. Grandma said it's okay for her to stay." Also, lots of ambulance calls for, "I have a stomach ache," which was code for, "I need a free pregnancy test."
I received a call on the non-emergency line from a 90-something-year-old lady asking me what lamp she should put in her bedroom. I told her I did not understand and that the sheriff's office was not the correct place to ask. Eventually she got upset and said, "Fine, I'll call 911, they'll help me there." I tried to tell her that 911 would just go back to me and it was a misuse of an emergency line, but it was too late. 15 seconds later 911 rings, I answer and lo and behold it was the lady asking, "What lamp should I get for my bedroom?"
Yeah, I'm in England. We had a call. I worked for the ambulance service, asking where the best place to get a bacon sandwich was at 4 in the morning.
My coworker answered a call asking how badly the bridge was backed up as they had diarrhea.
Let's see. A person in a suburban neighborhood called to report a group of youths on bikes, skateboards, etc. said they were up to no good. When asked what they were doing that constituted a crime or was dangerous, the caller admitted that they hadn't seen anything as such. But they just knew that these kids were up to no good. Didn't even dispatch anyone for that. During a very busy few minutes, some idiot with a scanner decided to call 911 and tell me that one of the local EMS agency's radio channel had an open mic. Basically, that refers to when a radio is accidentally activated and transmitting, potentially picking up any sound/conversation nearby, usually for an extended period of time. Since we did 911 call taking and dispatch, I was actively listening to said radio channel as this person called. There was no open mic. On a fairly regular basis, people would call 911 because someone wouldn't return property that they had lent. This is 100% not a police issue. As soon as I learned that the property was given/loaned willingly, it makes it a civil, i.e. non-criminal, non-police, issue. On the other hand, this one initially seemed petty but actually wasn't. A guy called and I had a difficult time understanding exactly what he was saying. He was definitely talking about something coming out of his toilet, so I thought he was calling about a plumbing issue. Unfortunately, this is not unheard of, though it is certainly not a good reason to call 911. After listening a bit more, however, I realized that he was reporting demons coming out of his toilet. He was genuinely and very distressed by this, and I didn't suspect that it was a joke or prank. Unfortunately, there was no one I could send right away, so I decided to try to help. I told him to put the toilet lid down. He took my advice and what would you know, the demons stopped coming out. He was very appreciative. We still sent someone once they were available, only a few minutes later.
People who get cut off in traffic are probably the worst inane callers. Like, "Oh, so this happened 3 hours ago? You don't remember the road it happened on? You don't know the registration of the VOI? There was no traffic crash? and there is not even the insinuation that either party involved were under influence of substances. Noise complaints are similar. People calling the emergency line to complain about being arrested earlier. One once complaining about being charged for abusing the emergency line. I've had a woman call emergency because their sister was refusing to share their food at a cinema. But what is probably more insane is the serious incidents that are started by inane and petty things. Once had a serious FDV between a mother and daughter. The mother stabbed the daughter after an argument over the color of cupcake batter.
People in major cities have been known to call 911 during blackouts because they've never seen the Milky Way before and I guess think it's some toxic cloud or something.
Not me, but a close family friend worked taking 911 calls for years. She said the number of calls they get about how to cook turkeys at Thanksgiving time is just baffling.
Not an operator, but a female customer once called the cops on my coworkers for scaring her too much. We work at a haunted house.
The number for Domino's Pizza. I told him he wanted 411, directory assistance in the US, not 911. 911 was for emergencies only.
Not a dispatcher, but when I was in EMS we were dispatched to a psych call. When we got there this lady was standing outside her house ready to go to the hospital. On the way to the hospital I was talking to her and trying to get her vitals when she told me there was nothing wrong with her, that she heard a family member was in the hospital and needed a ride, so she called 911. Cops met us at the hospital for her.
At the beginning of COVID, people would call 911 to rat out their Chinese neighbors, Canadian-born, only because the pandemic started there.
In the city where I live, if there's an Amber Alert beeping on your phone at 3 a.m., people will call 911 to beep about it to the operator saying that it woke them up.
I had a guy call 911 just because he wanted to see fire trucks and ambulances with lights and sirens. He miscalculated. There was a cop too. And he was not amused. Dude spent the night in jail.
Plenty of old people call 911 because they just can't rationalize who else to call when something happens like a power outage, but they're usually very nice and don't seem to understand that 911 isn't the place. That said, had a guy call 911 because he lived in a gated community, and the gate was stuck open. Like, it wouldn't close. Nobody was trapped or anything. And he said, and I quote, "Well, I don't have a number for emergency maintenance, so I figured you guys would know somebody." Question mark, 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 question mark. In general, we also get a lot of calls of suspicious people. That's just guy sitting in his truck for a little too long. Always really pisses me off to talk to the nosy ass people who are so paranoid of everyone that they waste my time telling me the black dude just doesn't look like he belongs here.
Not an operator, but my neighbor once threatened to call the cops on me for parking in my own driveway because I was preventing her from blocking it. Edit clarity. She wasn't blocking my driveway from the street. She was parking in my actual driveway.
I was calling a friend whose number started by 901. Misdialed. Hung up immediately before call was pick up. 20 feet later cop showed up at the door, asking to come in. My weed pipe was on the floor but he left without giving me any problems.
A classmate of mine in 6th grade called 911 because he lost to his sister in Hungry Hungry Hippos.
When I was 5 I called 911 because my mom threw away some leftover McDonald's fries I had saved from the day before. When I was 4 I called 911 because my mom threw away some old toys of mine. Damn cops didn't arrest her either time.
If you want an opposite story kind of, once I called the police non-emergency line because I heard gunshots outside of my, very Canadian, very suburban, house. The officer took my report and then said, "Well, should this ever happen again I'd like to encourage you to call 911 and not the reporting desk." My husband and I also spent 15+ minutes debating if we should call or not, and the officer had questions about that too.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.